What isn't there to talk about in East Lansing? A little bit of basketball, a little bit of football. Heck, might even get into a little bit of hockey with the one, the only Graham Couch of the Lansing State Journal. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, if you thought Iowa and Ohio State beating Michigan State as 9.5-point underdogs were big upsets, we got an even bigger upset. It's Graham Couch. He has yet to say no to appearing on this show. I'm as shocked as all of you are. This is nuts. But Graham of the Lansing State Journal, the Couch of the Room podcast, quite frankly, you don't need an introduction, but just did one anyway. Graham, how are we doing, man? We doing okay?
Yeah, this is the highlight of my week, being on this show. So always is.
Wow. You're going to have a Venmo payment sent to you shortly after recording for that nice comment. So this is how we're going to start today's show here, Graham. Who's more excited to see you? Is it me, the viewers, the listeners, or is it Tom Izzo at yesterday's media scrum? Because he seemed to be in a cheery mood to talk to the media after, the last week. He was really, really upbeat and smiley, wasn't he, yesterday?
Yes, in some ways he was a little combative. I also think he enjoys that a little bit.
Okay.
He's ready for it. He doesn't mind being a little combative. He doesn't mind the give and take. And he doesn't mind being pressed either. He just, he almost respects the tough question. I won't say almost respect. He does respect it. He may not sound like he appreciates it in the moment, but having covered him now for close to 12 years, it is something I've learned. You just, he will ultimately appreciate you in the long run and respect you if you ask the question that needs to be asked, and if you're willing to stand up for yourself, and even when there's disagreements. And but he also, I think, for a guy who doesn't have a Twitter account, here's the fan base right now a little bit, and you can tell.
Yeah, just a little bit. It was very direct. You're saying he doesn't mind the big question. He was dragging it out of people. Yesterday in the scrum, if you guys missed it, he said, go ahead, ask the question, ask why I didn't play Booker. Like he was just saying, cut to the chase, guys. And look, I get that he's going on this whole, like, oh, I didn't forget to coach. Yeah, this and that. The Twitter idiots are out there getting me. Like, Graham, maybe I'm not going to speak for the whole fan base. I'm just speaking as one fan, just myself. That bit is all fun and games when it starts, when it's just like one bad loss or something like that. But now we're running on 4 years where, look, over the last 4 years, you're close to 500 in Big Ten ball. You're not winning as many big games as you used to. The coaching has been very questionable late in the games, especially recently. Am I fair to kind of say, like, Tom, like, this isn't like really fun right now anymore? Like, I get the whole combative thing is fun every once in a while, but I've had enough. Am I a bad fan for saying that to this great coach, or where am I at right now?
No, I mean, I think people have every right to be frustrated. And I think what I think is the last game was a bizarre experience, because in a lot of ways it was everything every fan had ever wanted at the beginning of the game. And I think he did play it right. And he was right about Booker. We all saw Xavier Booker in December and January and not looking ready at certain points. I think that was something people were frustrated about, but then there were a couple moments on the court, and it was something that I think we could see at practice for a while, that he wasn't ready to go, but then he was, and you found the matchup you liked, and he started and he played 17 of 25 minutes, and then he didn't play anymore, and ultimately the offense went stagnant. You played two bigs for a while that weren't Booker included in them, and then when you can blame the shooting, and that's part of it. But when your shooting isn't working, you're not connecting on shots, when your offense isn't working, that's a time to interject something different. And the guy you started, who gives you a different look offensively, who changes, how teams, or how you space the floor, how teams deal with you defensively, is one thing you can do. And so I still think it was a mistake not to go to him. I think Izzo probably thinks it was a mistake not to go to him. He's just not going to say it. you know, and,
Right.
and the way Izzo says it is by doing it differently next time. And it's sort of like, you know, you got to make him think he thought it. He's got to think he thought of it. You know, he's not going to admit that, you know, fans or a writer were right on something. He's stubborn like that. But the other thing that will be interesting to see now it's Purdue, and then it's senior day. So I don't think you're going to see Booker in the starting lineup because Mady Sissoko is going to start against Northwestern because it's senior day. He's probably going to start against Zach Edey at Purdue. So it'll be a minute before we realize and recognize how different it is. It'll be how much Booker plays, especially against Northwestern and Indiana. But yeah, no, he's not in a great mood right now, and he hears the criticism, and I think he's and he's right that there are things that people don't see, but sometimes it's also pretty obvious, and coaches overthink things.
I have a take that if your answer isn't, you know, great, we're just going to edit it all out if I really look like an idiot for what I'm about to say right now. But I have to temperature check something off you because you're the guy on the inside. You talk to him substantially more than the rest of us do. I know that he has said that he's not going to retire this offseason. And I'm not going to say that, I expect him to, but like, I don't think the percentage is necessarily zero right now, because look, he's had the quotes in the past like, this team is giving me new energy. I feel like I got another 5 years extended by this group. I feel quite the opposite has been happening this year, where like maybe he's starting to like lose some energy and getting fed up. Am I an idiot for saying that it's no longer a 0% chance and maybe even just like a 10% chance he walks away? Or what's your read on Tom Izzo in this offseason? I'm going like way off the wall here, so please feel free to call me an idiot if it's that off base.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think he's going to retire. I would be surprised. Nothing I've heard leads me to believe that, and that includes from him. And having said that, I also think there's a chance that I won't see it coming when it happens. That said, I don't think it's now.
Okay.
You know, if you said, hey, you've got to coach A.J. Hoggard as your starting point guard for the next 5 years, yeah, he might go, okay, let's think about it. But the beauty of college basketball, right, is things turn over. And I think he's excited about a Jeremy Fears-led team. He's excited about Trey Holloman as a leader, as a veteran. He'd like to see what Xavier Booker, an actual pro on his roster, which he doesn't. I mean, Booker is a pro, but he's not in pro form, right? I mean, years from now, people will go, and this always happens. Years from now, people will go, how did they not do that? They had a pro on their roster. They had Xavier Booker. But we all will know what Xavier Booker was this year. But from an outsider, so now people won't remember that. So. But I do not think he's retiring. I have not seen a single inkling of it. I don't think he wants to go out with a year like this. I still think he thinks, he has his fastball, so to speak. And so I'd be very surprised.
Okay. That's a great answer. And again, I'm not saying like, I expect him to, but for the first time in a very, very, very long time, after the Ohio State game, after the press conference, the media scrum, I'm starting to think, yeah, I wonder if that beach house in Grand Haven is looking a little nicer as these days go along here for old Tom. But again,
I don't think he likes. Yeah, no, I don't think he. I mean, I don't think he likes his beach house in Grand Haven, and I don't mean that he doesn't like spending a week. But that's not like Tom Izzo is not retired guy. Like this is who Tom Izzo is, and maybe he would adjust into it and do some television and do some things he liked and. But I still think for the most part he enjoys being Tom Izzo. What I mean by that is. Everything he is as a coach, the fact that he's hung in there longer than some other guys, the fact that he's still been able to build a roster his way largely. Now, this offseason, I think, is an important offseason, and we'll see what adjustments they make. But I still think and he enjoys being Tom Izzo to Michigan State. And I also think Michigan State fans should not want him to retire.
Totally.
Because understand that if Tom Izzo retires, I wouldn't put it at 100% chance, but I bet a lot of money that Jeremy Fears, Xavier Booker aren't on next year's roster. I bet most of the roster isn't on next year's roster. That's going to be the challenge when he eventually goes. And I think the thing that you want to do if you're Michigan State is you almost want to do what Gene Cady did with Matt Painter. Maybe not to the extreme of Bo Ryan and Greg Gard where he quit in season, but you want to almost have an heir apparent. So your roster knows who's next, knows what that feels and looks like, and you're recruiting with that person. And the hard part is Izzo doesn't want a retirement tour or anything like that. But that, to me, for the future of the program, would be the best way to eventually do it.
I want to drag some more insider insight out of you here in a hot segment first, Graham. So sorry, I got to kick you to the bench because I need to talk to people's ears off about Nissan. That's right, new friend of the program. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventures to the next level. Like, for example, the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for both city drives and great escapes. With class exclusive Google built in, it's always updating, assisting you on call for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. It does not get any easier than with the Nissan Rogue. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Now, picture a rugged 4x4 that can also seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. You can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Nissan Armada. So what are you waiting for? Upgrade your adventures. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. And let's get the one, the only Graham Couch of the Lansing State Journal and Couch in the Room podcast back into the mix here. Graham, we're going to tap into you to be our mole for one more question here. We've seen this as Michigan State fans, not just last 4 years, but it's just as long as college basketball has been played, there will always be a rough stretch in February. And when the whole fan base, myself included, quits on the team, they bounce back and have some extraordinary win. Now, whether that's Purdue coming up, whether it's a run in the Big Ten tournament, March Madness, what have you, is there reason to believe that, hey, a run is coming? Or when you're in practice and you're watching these players, do you kind of get the feeling that, oh, this is just the same nucleus that's been around for 4 years? All they know is kind of mediocrity at this point, and the flame has finally been doused out over the last week. Do you still think that there is reason to believe in this unit?
Well, I think there are a couple layers to that. One, in practice, and one of the things that Izzo has always done, because he wants people to understand and he wants people to see, is he opens practice to the media. And so you do get to see a lot of practice. And it helps you understand. I mean, that's why he does it. He does not want ill-informed opinions out there as much as he can avoid it. And you do see, I see a team that practices with a purpose, that, generally likes each other. And you don't see any of the stuff that's, like this is teams just sort of quit and just waiting toward the end. I'm not saying it's not late in the year and they're not beat up and they can all use a day off here and there, but there are a lot of, practices where there's lots of vigor and enjoyment of each other and things like that. And guys, you would think there's nobody you see off to the corner, like just sulking on their own. I think this is a group, I'm not saying it's the closest group ever, but it's a group that I think likes each other and still thinks they have something to them this postseason. Now, whether they do, because my sense is that guys like Walker and Hogard can, think they can turn it on a little bit. And maybe they can, because we've seen it before. But you put yourself in a spot where if you're an 8-9 seed, for example, it just gets hard to make a run. Yeah. And it gets, and there are some limitations to the roster. And the real, I think when you see something like what happened with Xavier Booker, the good parts of Sunday, that is a reason to think, oh, well, there's a little something different they can do at the 5 or wherever and makes them different as a team and gives them some hope. And I think the players felt that when he was on the floor. I think to be honest, like, it's not just me that thinks Tom Izzo should have gone back to Xavier Booker. I'm telling you right now, every single player on that court thought that they should go back to Xavier Booker. Sure. But I think the bigger problem is, Tyson Walker's health, because Tyson Walker is your star and he is your counter. Like, think about their game against Purdue at Breslin last year. Sure, they lost to a really good Purdue team by 1, but Walker had 30 points. He was the counter to Edey. Right, he's your guy who can go toe-to-toe in that. And look, we've seen 25 points from A.J. Hogard and guys step up and, and have other, Malik Hall have good games. But Walker's your star. And he, for 14 games this year, he averaged 20.6 points, shot 41% from 3, and looked like a star. Was going to be the first player under Izzo to average 20 a game. And then in the last 13 games, he's only reached 20 points twice. He's averaging 15 points a game, and he's shooting 32% from 3. That's a significant drop-off, and a lot of that has to do with his health. And I don't know if he can get that back. But the Tyson Walker that's played the last 13 games, with that Tyson Walker, this Michigan State team does not have a run in them. With the Tyson Walker that played the first 14, they do. Can he turn that on? Can he be that guy? We'll see.
I feel like the physical health has just, blurred over into mental too, because look, I'm at the game on Sunday, and we've seen it in games prior too, where he seems a little hesitant almost to take the open 3-point shot, or just a little hesitant when he switched onto someone to take that first step on him. I don't know. It just seems like there's also a lack of confidence too, which obviously understandable if he knows that he's hurting, he can't do certain things, but I think it's both at this point, physical and mental. Is that over speculating, or do you think that's a little fair?
It's hard to say, because there are moments. There was a moment against Ohio State where he came back and dove after a ball, and there are moments where he looks like every bit his old self. And there are times defensively he looks great, and there are times on offense he looks great. And I think they have trouble getting it out of him. Like I know when I ask him every time, he says, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm good." Like I even preface every question now. I know you say you're fine, but
right.
But I think the coaching staff and training staff has that issue with him too. Like, he is a kid who does not want to admit there's anything ever wrong with him, and they really can't. I mean, he says he's okay, and he's still a guy averaging 15 points in Big Ten basketball. Like, he's not incapable. So what do you do with that? I'm somebody who would have, like, just taking 2 weeks off get you to 100%. I don't know that it does either. So is that worth it? I think It's a tricky situation.
Hey, but 6 days off between games, that's probably best for everyone involved. Just give everyone a break of watching this team for a little bit. And also, hey, get a little healthier. Let's do this massive, blown out, super in-depth Purdue preview. Here we go, Graham. Zach Edey's going to have 30 points. He's going to get away with roughly 16 fouls. And also, he's just a really good player. It's not to say that the lack of fouls called on him is the only reason he's really good. No, he's just a naturally gifted basketball player. And it's MSU on the road. That's really the preview. I got no chance of winning here. You have anything else to offer the people? Actual insight? Do you think there's any shot of a win on Saturday?
It's very slim, because I think Purdue is just better than they've been too. Like, I like their roster. I like the right. Number of, they got, 6 guys shooting over 36% from three. They got four volume shooters over that, like 5 over 40. They got a lot of really good shooters around Edey and good players around him. And their point guard, Braden Smith, he's an all-conference point guard. And so they've just got a lot going for them, and they're built really well. And Edey does avoid foul trouble. And some of that is him, though. He does not. If you can't just drive at him and think he's going to pick up a stupid foul. He doesn't do that. Now, does he get away with, some stuff in there? Sure. But he's a big guy, and I think he's a hard guy to officiate too. I think the key to beating them, obviously, you can't just go toe-to-toe with them in terms of, like, I'll counter Edey the best. You have to present something that's a problem.
Yeah.
I do think that's where, and sure, there are guys like Booker for a stretch would be good if he hit some shots. But I also think, their shooters, Michigan State pound for pound with everybody else is fine. And their shooters are going to have to make shots. And if you do that and you're in this game for a while and you grow that confidence that you can beat these guys, then you got a chance. And, we've seen games where they've shot the ball well enough to be in this game. I think the key against Edey, and I was talking to Carson Cooper about this, because it's not their big concern. Edey's going to get a lot of points. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like the NBA. The NBA does a much better job than Izzo in college basketball. In college basketball, somebody scores on you, it's like an affront to who you are as a person. Right. It's like,
yes,
get that person out of here. They're awful. In the NBA, they just run down the court and play the next possession, and that's a better, healthier perspective of a way to do things. But with Edey, it is not letting him get the second shot. He leads the nation in offensive rebounds. One of the things he does best is miss a shot, go get it, and put it back in. If you can prevent those, I don't care if you don't get a hand up on his initial shot, but turn and box him. If you can, not play undisciplined against him and try to keep him off the glass where he's, going to give you 6-8 extra points. Those are, trying to stay in a game like that. Those are critical moments. And I think that is a big key for something against Edey you can do. And then you try to make him uncomfortable. Everybody's done it, I don't know what that looks like though.
Just send Steven Izzo and Nick Sanders in there to hang on to his arms. 10 of the hardest fouls that those guys can commit. That's it.
When I was covering JUCO basketball way back in the day,
one
of the things I was taught in Freeport, Illinois, by a guy who played post defense is you take your hand like this,
Okay.
and it's a kidney punch that the refs don't see.
Got it.
And I don't see it enough in major Division I basketball. Like if I was down there, that's you want a guy to be uncomfortable. 3-4 kidney punches is probably the way to go. I'm obviously kidding. You can fix that.
I'll be no, that's fine. No, I'll just take ownership for it. I told Graham to say that. Yeah. So what if Nick Sanders gets flagrant? He gets suspended by the Big Ten. He's not going to play the next 2 games anyway. Just get in there, Nick. Come on. So, all right, we're going to blend together a hockey question and a football question in the same one. Coming up next. First, I need to talk to people's ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Folks, if you are into the NBA and, just into free money, FanDuel is the place to be, because if you are a new customer right now, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Or let's say the NBA isn't for you. You want to throw some money behind the Spartans, whether it's the basketball team this weekend, whether it's the hockey team to win the national title at 11-1 over at FanDuel. Those are the 6th best odds in the country. So if you're feeling really good about the Icy Spartans, go on over to FanDuel. Place a nice little wager on them. $10 will win $110 should they win the national title. So what are you waiting for out there, gang? Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. It's FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Now, this might be an apples to oranges question here, but we're going to try our best here. What is the greater crime against humanity here, Graham? Is it the fact that the College Football Playoff Committee is already thinking of expanding to 14 teams before 12 teams even gets off the ground? Or is it the fact that 2 teams playing for the Big Ten regular season title this weekend are on Big Ten Plus and not actual Big Ten Network? Again, apples to oranges. But who should be put behind bars first? The Big Ten Network C-suite or the College Football Playoff Committee?
I would say the College Football Playoff Committee. Because while I am, as a logistics man myself, I'm offended that the Big Ten couldn't figure this out, because I'm pretty sure I could. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
But I also understand this is not something they've run into often. Wisconsin was the worst team in the Big Ten last year. Mm-hmm. Michigan State was in the middle of the pack. Minnesota and Michigan have been really good programs. If you're playing this out from a ways out, this looked like the matchup. But you should be prepared to be more flexible, because you can always wind up in this spot. So it's ridiculous. There are more options. They need to fix that going forward, and I think they will. And it's too bad. The Big Ten, it's going to cost a lot of people want to see it on Big Ten Plus. It's probably worth getting for a month. It's not a bad month to have it. There's some extra stuff on it. You get a chance to see what it is. It's a lot of way to see a lot of non-revs. Michigan State baseball, softball, things like that. It's a blessing in a lot of ways. Just this game deserved more. Mm-hmm. The college football playoff, 12 seems like they stumbled into something perfect. Yeah. And has a real chance to be great. And now they're doing this entitled thing where you get 3 auto bids if you're the Big Ten and only 2 in other leagues. I hate that. That bully idea that we are better than you. I hate. I will root like hell against the Big Ten if that's what happens. Like I cannot stand that. The Big Ten has already been a big part of destroying college sports, I think. Mm-hmm. I think the SEC has some culpability in that too, and certainly what they did with the Pac-12. But here you have something that works. And I'm not saying there isn't a reason to expand, but let's see it. Let's see it at 12. Because from the outside, it looks like a really good deal with the 4 buys, and then, let the committee pick. And if you're really having a problem with the committee and the teams are down 10, 11, 12, we're getting it wrong, then okay, and maybe it needs to be. But the problem is then you put it, 3 teams from the Big Ten go. Well, I got a huge problem with that. Like, who decides that? The Big Ten standings? When you don't have a balanced schedule anymore, and you've got 18 teams, so one team could play almost a completely different schedule than another, and you're going to measure them by the same standings? Yeah. No. So, that is, again, the logic has been, I think we're at the point with a lot of top administrators in college athletics where it's first line of obituary stuff. I'm annoyed as hell. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I get, there's just so much greed, and there's a chance we leave it up to these folks. They kill what should not be able to be killed. They killed the golden goose, so to speak.
I feel like a massive hypocrite too, because I'm fired up for the 12-team playoff. I love it. I think it's great. Sure, kind of erases some tradition, but for some reason, just 2 extra teams, 14 teams, makes me appalled. It's like, oh, the greed of these people, and I know how silly that sounds.
It's not the 14. It's the idea that the Big Ten and SEC, not
Sure.
knowing what each year is going to look like, get 3 autos and other leagues get 2. Like, you're automatically better. We don't know that year to year. Like, what makes you assume you're better? And that sort of bully control, we are bigger than you, we are better, that annoys me. I will not, I mean, it'll be really hard for me not to root against those leagues. And I think a lot of people, there are people who feel like me. I think there are a lot of people now who, they still have their own team. They're a Michigan State fan. You're not going to not root against, you're rooting for Michigan State. But beyond that, any sort of, collegiality that existed within the Big Ten, you start to, I don't want to be a part of this. And I've always been somebody who likes the little guy, so I'm going to be more offended than most. But yeah, I cannot stand it. It drives me nuts. It's just asinine.
So we'll end on this. I learned this at journalism school at Michigan State. If something happens in a 24-hour news cycle, make sure to bring it up 5 whole days later, because surely it'll still be relevant. So let's just riff on this for a little bit, because if you don't have an opinion on this, you actually get your media member card taken away from you. Graham, your thoughts on court storming. And of course, this comes in the wake of the whole Duke Wake Forest thing, with shout out to Kyle Filipowski. 30 minutes, just 4 days after getting his leg amputated. That is remarkable. Like, that story is a different discussion. But do you have a hard opinion on court storming?
Duke is not the great team. Duke is not going to be what cancels court storming, because it's just not a sympathetic school.
No,
right? And so that's that. I mean, I have a mixed thoughts, because I do think court storming, when it's a really big event, is fun for a lot of people. It is something where you are sharing in this really emotional, great experience for something your school has done, and you're on the court, and that is fun. And I think it also, if you're the team that happens to it, can say big things. I think Michigan State basketball arrived not when they won a national title. That was obviously big, but arrived as a program, supplanting Indiana in the Big Ten. The following year, when they were ranked number 1, they won at Indiana. And Indiana basketball, the Hoosier State, storms the court after beating number 1 ranked Michigan State. Huge moment. But it was a legitimate storm. I think I have mixed feelings, because I think it's kind of cool. I also understand the danger of it. I've been on a football field once that was stormed and felt like the world was caving in on me. And I think at some point somebody will get hurt. Now, there are other more dangerous things in this world that we ought to probably worry about than court storming. I think there's an easy way to get rid of it if you don't want it. The team that storms the court forfeits the game. And you don't have to arrest anybody. But even a student body liquored up would look at the situation of, and obviously you could have 4 or 5 stragglers who run onto the court, and it's like, that's not going to cost you the game. But but if that's it. You lose the game. SEC football game, Big Ten basketball, whatever it is. And I think that would be punitive enough to just end it. So if you want to end it, let's do it. If you don't want to end it, then I don't have a huge problem with it. I don't know. My outrage meter is very, very low. I understand somebody probably will get hurt, but there are lots of things. I'm more ticked off about the 14-team playoff, and than I am. And I mean, I don't want anybody. I don't think anybody who thinks there should be 3 auto bids in the Big Ten and SEC has the mental aptitude to decide about court storming. So I'll just put those. I just can't deal with that.
No, that's fine, because my outrage meter is high for court storming, but I'm pro storming, obviously. And like you said, Duke is not a sympathetic figure, but they also made it incredibly weird and hard to get on their side after the game for 3 reasons. One, just talking about what the injury was with Kyle Filipowski. No one could get the story straight, whether it was ankle, knee, back. And then you have Filipowski saying, "Oh, I do think it was personal." As if some student section member came at him with an axe or was trying to douse him in gasoline in a match. It was just weird. It's a bang play. No one was coming in trying to punch him in the throat or anything. And then the third reason was John Shire just had the press conference saying, how many more times does this have to happen? It's gee, I don't know, John. Can you name some other times where something like this has happened? I get the Caitlin Clark thing, but even that was kind of a bang play. But it just seems like this has been something that's been fine for 30 years, and all of a sudden this year, it's just the biggest issue in the world. So I don't know. Duke did itself no favors with this whole dialogue too.
there is going to be a moment like, and I'm okay with if something happens at some point where it's like, boy, that we can't have that. We have to react and cancel it. And you can say, well, we ought to get ahead of that. But, and maybe there is that, because you can't have player safety reach a point where kids feel unsafe about it. What you don't want is like late in games, visiting teams starting to look around to try and figure out their exit and worrying about stuff while they're supposed to be focusing on play. Sure. You get to that point, and I'd be okay with it being, we're not going to arrest people. I think the easiest thing, it's a really easy fix. The team that storms the court forfeits the game. You know who never storms the court again? Anybody. So that's the way to go.
My idea is just have 5 lions just ready to let loose out of a cage, just to get people off the. I don't know. That just seems like the most common sense approach for me.
We'll do it. Yeah,
we'll brainstorm more ideas here on the next show probably. Folks, that's Graham Couch, just an absolute living legend in the Lansing area. So really do appreciate all your time, all your insight, all your knowledge, and anything else you want to shout out or plug before we get you out of here and let you enjoy the rest of your weekend here.
Well, you might not be able to see the Michigan State hockey game if you don't have BTN Plus, but the Lansing State Journal will be in Madison Friday night, and if they win, we'll be there Saturday night. I will be there Friday night, and then in Purdue Saturday night. But so we'll have you covered on the hockey as long as they're playing games for the Big Ten Championship.
That's what I'm talking about. Folks, enjoy your weekend. Go hockey. Go green. Love you all. Let's go.